Okay, so here we are, 6.2 B as in boy, factoring trinomials in elementary algebra, and we are ready to get started with example number 6. All right, so we are going to look at something with a number besides a 1 as the leading coefficient. So we're putting a 2 in there, which isn't as bad as it I'm sorry, this sounds really terrible. It's not as bad as it will get, but it's still different. So it'll take just a hair bit more information. Now, one of the things you want to look at, when you are given a number other than 1 here, look and see if you can factor that number out of here. So, for example, I've got a 2 here. How many times does 2 go into 2? Once. Does it go into 10? Yes. Does it go into 28? Yes. Oh, happy day. That makes life so much easier because what I can do is I can factor a 2 out, and I'm left with x squared there, and I'm left with 5x there, and I'm left with 14 there. Now, I'm just going to let this 2 drag along as part of the answer. I'm not going to do anything with it. It's just going to follow me along. What I'm going to do is factor that. So I've got a 2. Leave that there. And now that I have a 1 in front of this x here, I know I have an x there and an x there. Okay, factors of negative 14. Negative 14 and 1. 14, negative 1. 2, negative 7. Negative 2 and 7. So, all of them multiply together and give me negative 14. Which ones add together and give me a positive 5? That's what I'm looking for. And it ends up being that there. So I've got a minus 2 and a plus 7, and I'm done. Okay, so again, you didn't do anything with that 2. It just kind of came out of the problem, and once it came out, we just kind of tag it along. It's got to be in there. It is part of the answer, but you don't do anything with it. All right, which brings me to another one, and this time we're going to put a 3 in front of the x, but everything's done the same way. Okay. So now what we're going to do here is see what we have as far as greatest common factors. What do we have that's common to all 3 of these? If anything, fortunately we do. We have a 3. But notice we also have an x and an x and an x. So I can take the lowest exponented x, which is that one right there, and I can pull it out. And what do I have left here? Well, I pulled the 3 out, but I still have 2 x's. I've got an x squared because I pulled 1 out right there. And then the next one I pulled a 3 out and an x, but I have 1 left. And then the next one I had an 18x. Now I pulled the x out, and I don't have any x's there, and I pulled a 3 out, so 3 goes into 18 6 times. So remember, we're pulling a 3 out, but we're pulling a factor of 18 out, and factors always mean multiply. So if I pull a 3 out, what times 3 will give me my 18 back, and in this case 6. So again, we're just dragging along the 3x with us, so we're going to make 2 binomials. We're going to look at that. Now that it's 1 again, I'm going to put an x there and an x there, finding 2 numbers multiplied together that give me a negative 6. Okay, and I just have to pick which one is going to give me negative 6, which all of them are, and added together give me negative 1. So this one here, when I add those, they give me negative 1. So I can put a negative 3 here and a positive 2 there, and I am done. And remember, you got to make sure that 3 is there. All right, we're going to do just one more. This lesson wasn't too terribly long. Boy, I did it in 2 videos compared to last couple. It took me 3 stinking videos. So we've got negative y squared plus 11y minus 24. Okay, again, we hate these negative signs in the front here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make that negative y squared a positive. And in order to do that, I'm going to take the negative and I'm going to make a parenthesis. So remember when we did that before? When you put a negative in or you pull it out, it changes the sign of everything. So right here, my y squared was negative. I pulled that negative out, it changes to a positive. This changes to a negative, this changes to a positive. And then this negative here just follows along. 2 binomials. Put a y here and a y here. Two numbers multiplied together give me 24, positive 24. So 24 and 1, negative 24, negative 1 also give me a positive 24. And let's just go through the whole gamut here. Negative 12 and negative 2, or 12 and 2. Okay, 8 and 3, or negative 8, negative 3. Now see, as you're going down here, you're kind of saying, okay, do these work, do these work? You don't have to list them all before you decide that, because I can go, oh, wait a minute. Negative 8 plus negative 3 gives me negative 11. I can stop there. I don't have to do 6 times 4 and negative 6 times negative 4, and I don't have to, I can just stop where I'm at. So negative 8 times negative 3 is positive 24. Negative 8 plus negative 3 is negative 11. So I'm just going to put that on there, and again, that negative just sits there. That's all you need to do. If you want to put a 1 there, you can, but it's not necessary. The book did. I don't know why the book did, because that's normally not what you do. But anyway, that's example 8. Now let's look at some of the problem set. See if we can find any impossible ones that they might have gone over without teaching you how to do them. And see if we can kind of sort through them. So I'm going to pause here for a second as I look. Number 63 and 64, they did do something. They took and put 44 plus 7x minus x squared. Okay, the problem with this is it's not in the right order. We have to make sure the x squared is first, then the 7x, then the 44, and make sure you take the sign with it. Now I've got a negative here. I don't like negatives there, so I'm going to pull the negative out. That becomes positive. This becomes negative. This becomes negative. Two numbers multiplied together that give you a negative 44. The only way you can get a negative 44 when you multiply two numbers is if one's positive and one's negative. So that. I won't say that every time I do something. Okay, there's my factors of 44. Which ones add together to give me negative 7? This one right there. So negative quantity, x, negative 11, positive 4, and you be done. Okay, so if they're not in the correct order, you have to make sure they are in the correct order. Now let's look real quick at number 58. Let's do it. Let's get rid of what I've got there, at least some of it, so I've got some room here. All right, so 58, 5y to the 4th minus 10y cubed plus 5y squared. All right, what do I have common to all of those? I have a 5, and I also have a y squared. That's the smallest exponent. And over here, I'm left then with a y squared, a 2y, plus, I took everything out of there, right? Everything is gone. The 5, the y, the squared, but I have to have something there to take it. I have to have something in that place. So I put a 1 there. So this 5y is just going to drag along because it's out of the parenthesis. We're going to make 2 parentheses here. Put the first term there. And what two numbers multiply together give me positive 1, and added give me negative 2? Well, it's going to have to be that. So minus 1, minus 1. Okay? So now if we were to do the FOIL method, let's just look at this. We get first, outside, inside, last. And it's still got the 5y squared there. All right, so next step, y squared minus 2y plus 1. Next step is to distribute. So 5y to the 4th minus 10y cubed plus, and that's what we have clear up here to start with. So that's a way to check, is multiply everything together and see if you got the original problem back. And we did. So if we look at 65 to 76, we've got some that are a little bit tricky. Let's look at 66. X to the 6 minus 2x cubed minus 15. Okay, what are we going to do with that? All right, first of all, and this is getting into some tricky stuff. I apologize for that, but it's their fault. They're putting it on here. I'm going to change this, and I'm going to change it to x cubed squared, because 3 times 2 is 6. So this is the same as that. It's just written a little bit different. Minus 2x cubed minus 15. So let's make the parenthesis here and here and here. And we're going to take this first term, put it in both places. Two numbers added to, or multiplied, give me negative 15. Added, give me a negative 2. So we've got 5 and 3. So one's a 5 and the other one's a negative 3. Multiplied together, and this one added gives me a negative 2. And we are done. So, don't you love it when the book doesn't explain this, but then they give you one just like that? So what we do, when you're not given a squared up here, you make it a squared by finding two numbers multiplied together that give you that, where one of them is a 2, and you can put it there. And then you've got a 2 there, and then you just do it the way you did before. And you're ignoring this, basically, because this isn't even part of it. Because remember, we're finding two numbers multiplied together that give you this, added that give you this. We don't even care about what this is, so don't worry about that. Don't let that get you freaked out. But if you're given something bigger than an even number exponent, just divide it by 2, put that there, and then do the same old. Because remember, whatever letter this is squared goes here. And in this case, the letter has a number attached to it that's squared. So just take each of those and you should be okay. All right, we're going to look at one more. Let's look at 70. All right, so even though 70 looks a little bit tricky, we're just going to make our two parentheses like we normally do. Find two numbers multiplied together that give you 1/9. Well, the only ones that I can think of off the top of my head are 1/3 times 1/3. That gives me 1/9. Well, what happens when I add these? You add the numerators, and you get 2/3, which is right there. So I know that that is correct. But when you add those together, you're supposed to get a negative. So 1/3 times 1/3 equals 1/9. But so does negative 1/3 times negative 1/3 gives you a positive 1/9. When we add these two negatives together, we get this negative. So that's good. So that ends up being the negative portion. It's not going to be just 1/3 times 1/3, because when I add these, it gives me a positive 2/3, and I'm looking for a negative 2/3. Okay, so that's how you do that. When you do the same thing with 69, 71, 72, basically the same thing, only you're doing decimals. What two numbers multiplied together for 71 gives you 0.08? And you'll find out that it's going to be 0.4 and 0.2, 0.08. Take 0.4 times 0.2. 4 times 2 is 8, and we go over 2 decimal places. We get 0.08. So I know it's 0.4 plus and 0.2, and then when I add them up, do I get 0.6? 0.4 plus 0.2 is 0.6, so yes. So that gives you an idea of what your two terms are. So it would be x plus 0.4 and x plus 0.2. So sorry, I gave you the whole answer, didn't I? Anyway, let me know if you have any struggles.